Hi everyone. Today I just finished another book, so it seems like I'm on this like roll of finishing books really quickly. But actually, I think it's because the last couple of books I've read have not been that long. So I wanted to do a brief chat about the latest one I finished, which is actually called The Book of Phoenix by Nnedi Okorafor. There is the cover. I read this electronically as per usual for me. Hope you can see that. It's got kind of a glare as usual. Switch it to the side. Maybe that's not any different. So, anyway, The Book of Phoenix by Nnedi Okorafor. So, I don't remember exactly where I came across this book. I'm pretty sure I came across this book just browsing on Amazon.com. I do this sometimes. I just get on, not necessarily Amazon, but just book sites where you can buy books and just browse like I would in a in a physical bookstore. And I came across this one, and at the time I was curating a list to read in 2016, a TBR, and I hadn't done this before, but I decided to do it this year. And one of the things I wanted to really try to focus on for science fiction fantasy was to get to, in 2016 to read science fiction fantasy with a hefty dose of multiple points of view. Authors from diverse backgrounds, women, as opposed to, the usual science fiction fantasy books that I'm used to reading, which I would say mostly are male authors from the United States, Canada, or Great Britain. I had just had that sort of as a goal. So this particular author is a Nigerian-American. So she is an American, but she comes from, her parents were from Nigeria, and she spent a lot of time in Nigeria in her life. So she has sort of a fresh point of view, I thought. So this is why I chose the book. So what the book is about, the book, I think I would classify, it's hard to classify this book. It's as far as, is it science fiction or fantasy, or, actually does that even really matter? But I think it's actually, kind of a blend of both. The book is set in, it's a dystopia of the future. Most of the book itself is set in, the book itself is set in mostly for three places: the United States, West Africa, Ghana, and the U.S. Virgin Islands are the main locations. It's set in, but the main characters are actually the products of genetic experiments. There's a corporation. It seems like this particular world of the future, the corporations have quite a lot of power, and there is a corporation that does genetic manipulation and genetic experiments on people. And the main character Phoenix in the book is a product of this, as is most of the other main characters. So the book, though, one thing about the book is that it really, I don't want to give a lot away about the book, but the book felt to me like it was a story. The book is actually narrated. It's a prequel to another book of this author's called Who Fears Death. So this is a prequel. I have not read Who Fears Death. I have not read any of the other works by this author, so this book was a standalone for me, and it worked fine in that regard. But the book is actually a narration. It's an oral, so what you're reading is actually someone giving an account, a verbal account of what happened. So you're set in the future with a character listening to a story from his past that is also our future. That makes sense. So what ends up happening, though, is, or what's the main setup for the story, is these these people who have been genetically altered, they don't even actually know. The main character, Phoenix, she is around 3 years old, I think, but she's got the body of a 40-year-old, and she will always have the body of a 40-year-old. She is an accelerated human, so she grew up very fast and matured very fast, and she did not really even understand that she was a captive at first. It's all she knew was living inside this high rise in New York. She could see out, but it didn't ever dawn on her to try to leave until something ends up happening. She has one person in particular, another person there named Saeed, who is also a person there, an imprisoned person there, and he ends up seeing something that disturbs him very greatly, and it's through his experience then that she starts to awaken, and she becomes really aware of her oppression and her imprisonment, and so becomes determined to escape, and so that's the setup for the stories. So my experience of it was really quite positive. I don't know what I was expecting going into this story, but I didn't have a lot of expectations because I didn't know about this world, because I didn't read the previous book, Who Fears Death, so it was all really new to me and fresh, and it was really a refreshing way of storytelling. The book itself, I love books that have multiple meanings. Like, you can read a book and then you can also see a story within the story, and that I really get this from. I really got that heavily from the Book of Phoenix, because the story on one level is told of just sort of this. There's elements of magic, and there's elements of mythology, and there's elements of science fiction. So it's got a lot of that tie. There's sociological issues, of course, being addressed, but the main sort of theme, I think, that I took away from it was oppression and becoming aware of oppression, and then deciding to fight it, and to free oneself from it. And I believe that this is, to me, this was the overarching sort of theme to the story. One thing, though, that really struck me is how related it was to the intersectionality sort of justice, social justice, we would call it maybe today, because a lot of the terms she used, I'm involved with veganism, and so a lot of the terminology she used for her people are the people that are being experimented on, who are referred to as non-human animals. So to me, this was a direct tie-in to philosophy of veganism, which considers non-human animals also deserve the right to be free from exploitation and oppression by humans. And so some of the language of the book really matched this sort of concept. And I just wanted to read one little paragraph from the book that I think it fits really well with this idea of non-human animal, the vegan philosophy. But this is the Book of Phoenix. The character Phoenix is actually speaking this sentence, talking to the humans. We think a lot of things. Does this surprise you? Did you think us brainless bags of flesh, bone, and metal here solely for your use? To be manipulated, plied, cut, sewn, walked, run, thrown away as refuge when you finished with us? Did you think us your slaves? And to me that could be non-human animals speaking there. Phoenix, of course, she doesn't recognize the non-human animal world in her view of oppression, because one of the main characters, Saeed, that she loves, is has actually been genetically manipulated, so he actually eats inorganic matter like concrete and rust and sand. So in sometimes like they will look at him strangely, um, and just she'll kind of make a comment about his bowl of rust that he's eating, while she's eating a chicken. So she's actually eating a dead animal that suffered and been violently killed for her meal, but yet she doesn't recognize that being as being a non-human, an oppressed non-human. But that's my own interpretation of the book. This is not a criticism necessarily of the way the story itself is written. Um, another thing about the book that I thought was very cool was that one way that I don't want to tell a lot about how they've been genetically manipulated, although some of this information, actually all of this information, is in reviews that you would read on Amazon or elsewhere. But one of the aspects she has of her being is she can create heat and light, and she sort of glows. She can create it within herself, and so she has sort of the light and power of the sun. She has the capability of having the light and power of the sun within her, and she can sort of control that, and she can feel heat. She can heat up really a lot. She can cause plants to grow because the sun, the radiation. To me, that was a great tie-in to sort of this warrior against oppression, because she's bringing light. It's also bringing has the capability. It can burn. So the sun is not only brings light and life, but it brings it also can burn. So I thought that was a great tie-in with the story, and it was a great connection with the story that I made that I really liked. Another theme that runs through the story is time. She says another quote, one more quick quote from the book: "The storyteller must stop time to listen to a story." So I thought that was cool because to listen to when you read a book, you really do kind of lose time. But there's a lot of interplay with time and the concept of time in the stories too, which I really enjoyed. So overall, I really did get a lot from the book. I enjoyed it immensely, and I will be reading the book that this was a prequel to, Who Fears Death, which is apocalyptic, which I usually don't really enjoy apocalyptic books, but this one seems like it's now that I've read the prequel to it, it seems like a book that I would really like. Plus, she's written quite a few other things, so she is definitely an author that will be on my future TBRs. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. So until next time, I got more stuff coming up. So until then, see you soon. Bye.